Hi everyone, welcome to A+ Cichlids. Today we're talking about filtration. How much filtration do you need? What kind of filtration do you need? And what's important and what's not important? So first we're just going to talk about understanding why do you need filtration and how much do you really need. So the first thing to understand is this filtration process is basically the nitrogen cycle, which is going to be transforming that ammonia into nitrite and then to nitrate. So that's going to be the main purpose of having a filter. And then the next most important thing is going to be the clarity of your water. So if you have no filter, sometimes some of that particles get stuck in the water column and you're going to enjoy your aquarium less. It's going to look dirty, may not look the way you want it to look. So first thing we're just going to talk about is different types of filtrations. So you have three main ones. One's going to be hang on a back filters. So these are going to be these filters that are externally hanging on your aquarium, where they're basically circulating water through a small reservoir and then is pumping it back in. And then you're going to have canister filters, which is an external canister that normally sits below the aquarium on the ground. And basically it pulls water out of the aquarium and then it goes through this process inside the canister, and then it comes out of the canister and back into the aquarium. That's what this aquarium has right here. It's got two different ones. It's got over here it's got a canister filter. It's a Fluval 407. And then the last kind you have is sponge filters, which is my favorite. So the sponge filters, we actually manufacture. A+ Cichlids manufactures sponge filters. Here's one of them right here that we manufacture. So basically the kind of sponge filters we have and manufacture is going to be ones with air stones in them. So you have smaller bubbles that they produce, so they're not as noisy. And then also they have the mesh is very tight, which means that it's going to catch all the small particles. And it's going to be large where it's going to have an option for beneficial bacteria to grow. All right, so that's done for the advertisement for our sponge filters. But kind of going on to why sponge filters are good and things like that. So something with a sponge filter is it's run off air, which means I'm all about being cost efficient, meaning the more plugs you put in the wall, the more electricity you use is, to me, a negative. So if you run an air pump, you can oxygenate your water with the air pump, but you can also run a sponge filter, which is also filtering your water. All right. So now we're going to talk about more filtration steps and more things that you're going to find on the internet about filtration. So they have mechanical filtration. So these are just different types of filtrations that a filter can have. There's mechanical, chemical, and biological. So we'll talk about mechanical. So mechanical is going to be getting the physical particulates that you see in the water out of the water. So these are going to be more so when you look at the aquarium and you see that it's cloudy water or you see stuff floating in the water. Those are going to be your mechanical filtration that removes all of that. All right. Then you're going to have chemical filtration. So what this is you're adding a chemical into the aquarium to help with some of the biological factors that happen in the aquarium. So what it is, you're adding a chemical that has an ion exchange with what's inside the water, and it helps to dilute it or remove it. So you can talk about carbon. That's a really popular one. And zinc and different types of these chemicals that you can put in your water that are typically in your filter that help this ion exchange, which removes nitrite and ammonia from your water. All right. So typically you're going to see those in removable cartridges and hang on a back filters, or they come in a bulk version where you can put it like in a media bag and place in your canister filter. Okay. So then the last thing we're going to talk about is biological filtration, which is the most important one to me. So biological filtration is going to be this healthy bacteria that's called beneficial bacteria that you can grow inside the filter, which is actually going to do the nitrogen cycle for you, which will turn your ammonia nitrite into nitrate, which is the least harmful of the three. So basically, that's the most important thing to me. And that's just going to be surface area. So surface area means anything that is surface. So if you look at a sponge filter, that entire sponge filter is surface area. So that is all opportunity for beneficial bacteria to grow. If you look at it, something like a hang on a back filter, hang on a back filters have minimal surface area. So that's why those are my least favorite. So hang on a back filters don't have a lot of opportunity to grow that beneficial bacteria. Canister filters, you can get pretty large ones. I have a FX6, which is probably the largest filter you can get. as far as canister filters go. And all of that is going to be surface area for opportunities for beneficial bacteria to grow on, which is going to help with the nitrogen cycle and keep your water healthy for your fish to be the highest level of successful they can be. So let's talk about different forms of filtration now. So hang on a back filters, pros and cons. So those are my least favorite. So the pros of a hang on back filter is, I guess, you have disposable and accessible cartridges that you can replace on a schedule. So I think it becomes more expensive because you have to buy cases of these disposable cartridges that have the chemical filtration, which is normally a carbon or a zinc or something like that, which does ion exchange to help your water out. But they're disposable, meaning that once you see that it's gunged up, pick it up, throw it away, and put a new one in. So it's convenient in that aspect, but at the same time, it can be more expensive. And then also the biological filtration is very minimal with the hang on a back filter. So you get mechanical filtration as well because there's a mesh type material that are in these disposable filters, which will mechanically pull those particles from the water column. So that's pretty much all I got on the hang on back filters. I'm not a big fan of them. I would not recommend buying them. I would go a different route. The next thing to talk about is sponge filters. So these are my favorite. So any aquarium that is 40 gallons and lower, I recommend running sponge filters. And you may not need any kind of filter other than a sponge filter if your stocking levels are low with a 40-gallon aquarium. And then below that, I would just use sponge filters. So there are 0 opportunities for chemical filtration with a sponge filter, which means that you're not going to have any of those zincs or carbons that you can introduce with the ion exchange, which to me is the least important, or at least the least important thing for the nitrogen cycle to occur. And then the other end of it is you have surface area. So the larger the sponge, the more surface area you're going to grow beneficial bacteria, which is going to increase the nitrogen cycle, which is going to make your water healthy for your fish. And from a mechanical standpoint, so mechanical filtration, this does help to pull those particles out of the water and to keep your water clean. And the most convenient thing, and my favorite thing about a sponge filter, is you can just remove it and squeeze it and put it back in. So you remove the sponge filter from the aquarium, you squeeze it into a bucket, and then you put it back in, and that's all the maintenance that's required for them. So it's very convenient to have a sponge filter. All right, so next we're going to talk about canister filters. So canister filters are very good. They're probably my next favorite type of filtration. They work very well for those larger aquariums, 40 gallons and up. You can also put different types of media bags if you want to use chemical filtration. And they're decently accessible and easier to clean than some of the other filters. The worst thing about a canister filter is you have to take it outside to clean, and it can be a little bit hefty, and then you have to reprime it every time you clean it, which can be very difficult for certain filters. So I really like the Fluval FX6s, FX4s. Those are my favorite. They prime themselves. They're very convenient. A lot of the other canister filters can be very difficult to prime and difficult to clean and put together and take apart. So pros and cons. Canister filters I think are very beneficial for the fish. They have a large surface area for biological beneficial bacteria to grow in, and then they do really good for mechanical filtration. So mechanical filtration is going to be pulling those particles out of the water, and it's kind of called water flossing. So I think canister filters are one of the best for doing that, as far as there's a pump in there that forces water to go through this very high micron type of sponge type material, and basically what that's going to do is pull all the particles that are in the water column, even small particles. So I think that a canister filter is very, very good for having clean water from a physical standpoint, as far as seeing clear and there's no like fogginess to the water and things like that. So I'm a really big fan of canister filters for mainly just the reasoning of having clear water. And then lastly is sumps. So sumps are something that I use on almost all of my aquariums that are larger than about 75 gallons or so. And sumps are very, very good for convenience, and then also the biological opportunity for beneficial bacteria to grow. So sumps, you really do not need to clean them but every 6 months. And when cleaning them, all it really is bring a bucket and take the sponges out and you squeeze them and put them back in. There's a lot of, and then you have the gravel vac inside your sump, things like that. But as far as the amount of surface area you have, that's the maximum. The bigger the sump, the surface area of most of my sumps is like 7 canister filters. So you'd have to have 7 canister filters in order to equal the same amount of surface area as one sump. Then also, you can move more water this way. So sumps, you can put whatever size water pump you would like on them, as long as your overflow box can handle that volume of water. And with that being said, you can turn over the water in the aquarium up to 5 or 6 or 7 times per hour. So what that means is that when you feed your fish, that food that's in the water that creates ammonia when the fish eat it, it's going to be almost immediately addressed and turned into nitrite and then nitrate, which is the least amount of chance that that ammonia can be produced and stay in the water column to affect fish. So I'm a big fan of sumps, especially for maintenance wise. They're very minimal maintenance. And a lot of my larger aquariums, I run a sump and a canister filter. Reason is that canister filter helps a lot with the mechanical filtration for clear water, and then also had the benefits of the biological surface area for the sump. So there's kind of pros and cons. Sumps can be more expensive to find, or harder to find and more expensive to buy, but it's a long-term investment. And a lot of times you can find good deals on Marketplace and things like that. But buying a new sump is very expensive. I've never purchased a new sump before. I have about 9 or 10 sumps on different aquariums, and I've never purchased one new. I've always gotten one off Marketplace, or someone didn't need it and they were just getting rid of it. So that's what I'd recommend doing for any of your larger aquariums. The smallest aquarium I have a sump on is I have a 70-gallon. It's an Mbuna tank, and they're pretty messy eaters, being African cichlids. So I run a sump on that. That's the smallest aquarium I have a sump on. And then the largest, I have a 210 that has a pretty large sump on it. And so I really recommend going the sump route if you have an opportunity to do it. I know a lot of the stands out there don't give you much room to run a sump. So I think your situation, if you want to go that route, you need to figure out a kind of stand that allows you to give you room to put a sump within it. Most of my sumps are not in a closed cabinet. They're just kind of sitting on the bottom. There's also a kind of a unique look to having a sump. Some people like that look. So depending on your discretion, whether you like the look of a sump, the bio balls and things like that. So all of those are kind of off your opinion. But for most users, they use canister filters. I think those are the most popular. And then a lot of people like the hang-on back filters because of the disposable cartridges. I think those are the main marketing tips that they use to get people to buy hang-on back filters. But I think from a cost-efficient standpoint, I think canister filters are good investments. They last for a long time, and you don't have to buy the chemical filtration type things for them. You can run them without. And then sponge filters, I think, are overall the best. So that's my video and opinion on filtration. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to comment on the video so I can help you out, give you any of my tips. And don't forget to check out my YouTube page, Facebook page, and also my eBay account. I do sell fish as well. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Hope you guys have a great day.